This episode of Gators Breakdown is brought to you by BetterHelp. Prioritize your well-being. If you need help along the way, BetterHelp has got you covered. Visit betterhelp.com/gators and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/gators.
Gators Breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Here we are, Florida, Kentucky. Gators aiming to end their 3-game losing streak against the Wildcats. I know this sounds kind of crazy to say, but that's where we are right now with Florida and Kentucky, not what it used to be. So coming up, Adam Luckett from Kentucky Sports Radio hops on to discuss the Wildcats. I'll then share my thoughts and predictions for the game. We'll dive into Kentucky's offensive woes, their stellar defensive performance this season. They got some really impressive rankings on that side of the ball. And we'll get into, what can Florida show, some potential strategies for the offense against Kentucky's stingy defense. Going into DJ Lagway, of course, starting now and maybe targeting specific passing zones. And, of course, we'll break down some key players to watch in this game and how the showdown can unfold in the swamp. So this episode will also wrap up with another installment. We're back again with Focus on the Gators with Alex Shepard. Glad to have Alex back on. So lots to get into this episode of Gators Breakdown. Everybody hit that like button right here if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe right here on YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform if you haven't done so yet. What you waiting on? Those subscribes, those likes go a long way in helping us out right here on Gators Breakdown. And look, if you want even more, if you want to support Gators Breakdown some more, doing just supporting what we do right here, especially during the football season. Link is in the description to join Gators Breakdown Plus. Get those extra chats, ad-free episodes of Gators Breakdown. I know that's probably a big plus this time of year, but there we go. That conversation, pretty good. Going on a lot of coaching talk, of course, in the Gators Breakdown Plus Discord. Haven't brought it over to this side yet, but if you want to talk some coaching, maybe possible coaching changes, with some fellow Gator Nation members right there, Gators Breakdown Plus. Link is in the description. Joined now by Adam Luckett from Kentucky Sports Radio to break down these Kentucky Wildcats as they come to the swamp to take on the Gators. And Adam, kind of both teams sitting at 3-3, just like Florida coming off a loss as well. So a game for both sides to feel a little bit better about themselves if they come out on the right end.
Yeah, we're both living the 500 life here so far at the midway point. Yeah, I think it's a game for both. Like, it's kind of important for both head coaches. I don't think, Stoops is not in, I would say, the same position as Napier.
Right.
Having more kind of, tenure there. But there's definitely some pressure here, and there's definitely some worry, concern, questions about just where the program is long term. So this is definitely a big game, I think, for both sides.
So get us caught up on Kentucky a little bit. Roller coaster of a season. Had the big 31-6 loss to South Carolina, only to turn around and play Georgia very tough, upset Ole Miss, lose to Vandy last week. So it's really been, hey, okay, maybe it's not going to go so well, but hey, never mind, we're going to turn some things around and then there. So kind of just update us on what's been the reason for the roller coaster?
Yeah, first off, they're just team profile. It's a typical Stoops team.
Yeah.
New offensive coordinator, struggle to throw the ball, but defense is really good. I would say their defense this year is arguably the best he's had in Lexington. It's a really good defense. I think it's got multiple draft picks on it. I think it's got some high draft picks on it. All SEC cornerback Maxwell Harrison has not played the last couple games. I don't think he's going to play on Saturday, at least as of right now, and they really haven't even missed a beat. It's a really good defense. South Carolina, they gave up 24 points. One touchdown was on a pick six. And I believe the last 3 scoring drives, they started on Kentucky's side of the field or right over midfield. So even when they've given up some scores, it's been kind of, the field position has got them a couple times. But Vandy was really the first team, I think, to score an 80-plus touchdown drive on them this season. And so it's been a really good defense. They've never been a turnover machine producing-wise under Stoops, but they're producing takeaways this year. And so the defense is where it all starts. They are really good on defense. Now to the other parts. Offense has labored again. They're actually, I would say, they're probably running the ball efficiency-wise the best they have the last 2 years, just down to down, but there's no explosives to speak of. So it's a lot of 2nd and 6s, 3rd and 3s, but they're not creating explosives. And in the passing game, they really struggle to protect. Protection is a huge issue for this group. They're having to play a lot of 12 personnel, and it's really the 12 personnel is really with them playing 6 or 7 linemen. They're keeping these tight ends to protect because the protection has been a big issue. And then Brock Vandegrift has had some good moments and some bad moments, but he's still growing as a quarterback. The receiver position, I think, has been a little bit of a disappointment to this point outside of Dane Key. And so offensively, they're struggling right now. They're just not explosive at all. And the offensive line has some major issues, and it's a first-time quarterback with a new play caller. But they can win games, and they beat Ole Miss because this defense is absolutely the real deal. So that's just kind of where they're at. And I think as the season goes on, I think there could be some frustrations to come out because they've got such a good defense. But this offense, it just cannot put points on the board. And that was the reason they lost to Vanderbilt on Saturday. The defense played their worst game of the year, but they gave up 20 points, and you couldn't score. And then the South Carolina game was an absolute train wreck. It looked like, at some points, it looked like a high school team playing an NFL team. They just could not block the South Carolina front, and it was an absolute nightmare offensively for them. So that's kind of where they're at. It's a 3-3 team, but it feels like they got a defense that's good enough to be 5-1 or 6-0.
How big was that Ole Miss win? Because you started. I want maybe not started hearing rumblings, but after the South Carolina game, it was like, maybe South Carolina's that team that is on the uprise and not Florida, not Kentucky. Maybe it's South Carolina. They've calmed down a little bit, but then I think one of the first big upsets of the season, one of the top teams going down was Kentucky upsetting Ole Miss. And I know I think one of the top wins you guys have had as far as the top team going down. Just how big of a maybe exhale moment was that for Mark Stoops?
Yeah, it was the biggest road win, just ranked number wise since the 70s.
Okay,
it was the biggest SEC because they beat Penn State in the 70s, a top 10 Penn State team. And it was the biggest SEC road win since the 60s. So just from that aspect, it was a huge win. And we will have to see how the season goes with Ole Miss. Now they got 2 losses, but the big stat for Mark Stoops was that he hasn't really beaten these. He hasn't been beaten very many teams that ended up having a winning record. Now, half of those losses have been against Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, but there are a few there that they haven't gotten. And so for that, and it felt almost like a palate cleanser to what happened in the South Carolina game. And it was almost like, okay, they lost this one, but this win is going to count for more. And if that's just a one-off, the Carolina game, they really have a chance. It was almost a season saver. It felt like a season saver, like, hey, if the offense can keep showing improvement, because at that point they got better each week, realistically. And if the offense can keep growing, they have something here with this defense. If the offense keeps getting better, they're maybe a legit top 20 team, and they could scare some teams here down the stretch after what we saw against Georgia, and then back it up what you saw against Ole Miss. So it was a huge win in the moment, and I think there was a lot of negative talk around Stoops and the fan base, a lot of people down, and that pulled pretty much everyone back. Everyone was almost ready to be all in again with them. And then the next time you see them at home, they did the old Charlie Brown. And so now it's back to where are we at? Where is it going? You look at the schedule. It's probably not as tough as you thought it would be, but it's still pretty tough. Texas is number 1.
Yeah.
Tennessee's not as good, but that's a house of horrors for Kentucky. And so it's where are you ending up? And if you go 5-7, 6-6, it's a clear step back record wise, and it's going to feel like a big step back because you're losing to teams at home, and they've lost 2 of 12 SEC home games, or 10 of 12, excuse me. They're 2-10 in their last 12 SEC home games, dating back to 2021. So there's a lot of concern about just what direction I think the program is heading, and if they don't get it turned around, I think that pressure and that criticism is only going to continue to grow here locally.
Yeah, well, one direction that has changed is the game against Florida. So 3 straight wins against the Gators right now, and maybe on the outside looking in, it seems like Mark Stoops really takes this matchup serious. It seems personal for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I kind of liken it to maybe it was we can't take the next step till we beat Florida, no matter how bad or how good Florida is. That just what it seemed like from the Florida side of things. But however you want to describe it, this is a game Kentucky expects to win now.
Yeah, I think for Stoops, I think there's obviously the Florida State factor.
Yeah,
he was there. And I also think 2014 and 2017, Kentucky felt like they should have won. 2014, there was the delay of game kind of where it was bang, bang, goes to overtime, triple overtime. Kentucky felt like they should have won that game, and that was going to be the signature win for them that year. And then 2017, Stoops faced a lot of heat for the receivers not being covered for 2 of the touchdowns. So I think that had a little bit to do with it. And then I think he had Kentucky in position to kind of take advantage of Florida's churn there, with all the coaching changes, and they were just prime, I think, to take advantage of that. And this game, David, has usually been early in the year, right? And that is typically that's been where Stoops' teams have played their best ball. Like if you go and look, what were the best games some Stoops teams had? A lot of them have been in the first 5 to 6 weeks of the season.
And going to that point, it's been so frustrating for Florida because it'd be like Kentucky would play Eastern Michigan and just look okay.
Yeah.
Play a game against Toledo and just look okay. But then Florida rolls around and it's like, okay, everything's coming together and go put it to Florida.
Yeah, and I definitely think last year Kentucky had a weak start to the schedule. I mean, it was non-con, bad Vanderbilt team, Florida at home. There was very much some we're saving some stuff for this game. Right. We've got this one circled. This is our first, big game. And so I think they have, and Stoops has been good, I think, about that. And that's why this year has been so weird because the team was not ready at all for South Carolina. But typically under his watch, the best game they all play most of the time is that first SEC game. It's usually one of their better games. And so I think that's kind of lined up with the Florida series. Right. And I think that's part of the reason they've had success against the Gators.
Adam Luckett from Kentucky Sports Radio joining us right here on Gators Breakdown. You brought up Brock Vandegrift earlier, of course, transfer from Georgia. You assessed his season. So what do you expect against Florida? Do you even know what to expect? I mean, because you thought the Ole Miss game comes around. Okay, maybe he's turning the corner. Yeah. And then Vanderbilt happens. So, to me, from the orange and blue side, it looks like I don't know what quarterback we're getting with what he has shown lately.
Yeah, I am picking this the predictions this year. Man,
I know
it's been a tough exercise.
Yeah.
But I think in this game, I think you look back to what Kentucky did last year. I think they're probably going to come out and want to hammer that rock.
Yeah.
It's sounding like Chip Trainum, who was supposed to be their starting running back, he's going to be back this week, so he's going to have some type of role in this ball game. I think that's what they're going to kind of want to do: ground and pound, run the football, play defense, and then periodically, I don't think they're in a position where they want to drop back more than 23, 25 times. Like they want to throw the ball around 20 times. They want to run it around 40, 45, and kind of live in that area. And I think for Vandegrift, he's not getting a lot of help, David. It's hard. It's kind of been hard to really handicap him. I think he's shown some toughness. I think he's shown some ability to make some plays off script. I think he's shown an ability to stretch the ball vertically down the field. The big play against Ole Miss, it was a go ball. He hit Berrien Brown, was probably his best throw of the year. He's hitting Dane Key on some crossers and some in cuts that take some velocity and some arm strength to get there. But to throw passes like that, you have to have time, and that's been a big issue for them. And so he's taken a beating a little bit. I even think in the Vanderbilt game, he didn't play terrible. Again, I think O-line and receivers have been an issue, and so that's, I think, hurting him a little bit. And so to me, he's very middle-of-the-road quarterback right now. I do think he's got some potential, but he's not getting a lot of help right now. So for Kentucky, I think a lot of the game is just run the football, getting a lot of third and shorts, give yourself a chance to extend drives, eat clock, limit possessions, and then trust your defense to make plays and win the game. And then when, can you put together 2 to 3 drives? And if you can score 20 points with this defense, I think Kentucky, if you told Mark Stoops you get 20 points a game, I think he would sign up for it and say, let's play our 10 possessions in a row and let's get out of here in an hour and a half and see what we can do. And so I think that's very much what they're just trying to do enough so they can win football games because, again, this defense is really good. I mean, it's a really good defense.
We're Halloween season, and Ray Davis did some pretty horrific things to Florida's defense last year. You mentioned Trainum maybe making his first appearance for Kentucky this year. Outside of that, who's stepping up at running back for Kentucky? Because a lot of Gator fans are going to remember Ray Davis, but not necessarily knowing what Kentucky has now. Yeah,
for the first time, really, I think in the Stoops era, it feels like a true committee approach.
Okay.
Demi Sumo-Karngbae is their starter, former NC State transfer. He's good out of the backfield. Like, he's caught a bunch of balls this year. I think he's third on the team in receptions right now, so he's involved in the passing game. He's kind of an undersized back, but he's ran with more power than we kind of thought. He's been able to move piles a little bit. So he's been, I wouldn't say, he's not a star or anything, but he's a solid tailback. Jamarian Wilcox is a redshirt freshman, really talented. He's more their kind of explosive play guy. Has had some really good, played well against Georgia, had popped a couple runs against Ole Miss, but he's kind of going back and forth between the coach's doghouse. And so you don't really know what you're going to get from him on a week-to-week basis. And then the third guy would be Trainum. And now Gavin Wimsett, Rutgers quarterback transfer, they are just throwing him out here as a Wildcat quarterback. So they will have a drive, and it'll be a 1st and 10, and they'll put him in. Or it'll be a 2nd and 3, and he'll come in the game randomly. And so they're using him. And he's probably been just on a play-by-play stat, probably their most effective rusher, probably their best combination of explosiveness and efficiency. But again, they've had a very hard time creating explosives, but they do a good job of getting the 2nd 5, 3rd and 3. And if they can avoid negative plays on offense, they can have some success. And I think that's where they found success against Ole Miss was it was not very sexy, but it was just, we're getting in 3rd and 4s and we were able to convert more often than not, and that's given us a chance. And that also played out against Georgia. I mean, that was kind of the recipe against Georgia. Get to 3rd and 3, extend drives, and got into field goal range 4 times, and it was almost good enough to win the game.
It's kind of weird you saying how Mark Stoops wants to play, because I'm a big fan of Dane Key and Berrien Brown, of their potential explosiveness. Mm-hmm. You'd like to probably pass the ball downfield a lot to those guys, but does that take away from the type of game plan? But look, you score points any way possible to try and win some games. Is it a little frustrating, I guess, maybe from those guys' perspective of how this offense maybe plays out? And look, I know you say everybody probably watched the Kentucky-South Carolina game, and probably that's a good inclination of why the ball is not going down the field a whole lot. Right. But to me, with those two guys, I think the potential is there.
Yeah. With Dane Key, I think after the South Carolina game, they made a conscious decision. Our passing game is going to run through him. He's gotten double-digit targets in every game since then. He's gone over 100 yards twice, and then I think he had 82 receiving yards against Vanderbilt in a limited possession game where they only have 50-something snaps. So if a normal game, he probably goes over 100 in that game. So he's having like he's on track to have, I think, a second-team all-SEC caliber season. Like, he's going to push for 800, 900 yards, probably lead them in touchdowns. He's having a good year. I think there's been some frustration with Berrien Brown just from a route running and getting open standpoint. And they have tried a lot of different ways to get him the ball in kind of gadget type plays, end arounds, jet sweeps, screens. And it just they haven't really found something consistently that's working yet. Now, he has drawn I think he's drawn 3 flags this year on deep post. So you'll probably see at least one of those on Saturday. And if Kentucky gets a press man coverage, they'll probably take a shot on a goal ball eventually. That's something they really didn't get from Vanderbilt, so you didn't see it last week. But it's been a little frustrating. And that Jawari Macklin was a guy they got from the portal, was really supposed to be their wide receiver 3 and really try to help upgrade the pass game. And that was a big portal win for Kentucky. And his 6-game run here has been very disappointing. Like, he's almost a non-factor now, and that wasn't in the plan at all. And so you've taken that away, you add in the protection issues. It's just kind of been, all right, we're going to get the ball to Dane, and we'll worry about everything else later. And that's kind of how it's played out these last few games since the South Carolina debacle.
Going to move to the other side of the ball right here with Adam. And look, it was a ton of starters return for this defense this year for the Wildcats. And look, ranked near the top of the country and the SEC in many categories. All you got to do is look at point totals. Held Georgia to 13 points, Ole Miss to 17. And once again, Brad White has got that unit playing at a high level. And to me, that's been the side of the ball that's given Florida the most fits in this winning streak.
Yeah, I think even since Napier's gotten there, I think Brad White has really won that matchup. And that's been the main reason Kentucky's won these last couple seasons, even before the 2021 game. It was Dan Mullen had the famous line, "We outgained them."
Yeah.
But Kentucky had the goal line stands there at the end, and Brad White's team, he's a really good coordinator. Kentucky's been able to hang on to him. And he's got, I would say, his most talented defense. And you mentioned the score totals, but I also think, they struggled a little bit with Diego Pavia and that offense, which is something they won't see the rest of the year. But they had Carson Beck rattled in that game, and I was really surprised by that. And then the next week, they gave Jackson Dart some fits down there. And those are two, those quarterbacks probably aren't having the years that we all thought they would have. But still really good college quarterbacks, and Kentucky really had both of them contained and just kind of buttoned up for most of those games. And really, that was the reason, I think, if you go into the game, that Kentucky had a chance to win both those games in the fourth quarter, is because they kept Dart and Beck season-low passing yards were both against Kentucky. Yeah. And so they've done a really good job, and it starts, I think, with the D-line and how they're able to stop the run game. They're able to. They kind of make Georgia and Ole Miss both one-dimensional, and they're a hard front to run against. Kirby Smart and Lane Kiffin. Now you can consider some of this coach speak, but they both, like Kirby Smart said during his interview in the game, "What's giving you problems?" He laughed and said, "Well, their front's giving us problems. We can't block them." And then Lane Kiffin said, in two press conferences before the game, he said, "This front's really good. It's going to be a different type of game. They're going to really challenge us." And then after the game, they asked him, what happened? It's like, well, they're really good on defensive line. They got a really good front. They've got pros. And so that's really where it starts for Kentucky. Both linebackers are really, really good. Derek Jackson and Jamon Dumas-Johnson. And the secondary play was a weakness last year, and I think it's overall, top to bottom, it's been improved even without Maxwell Harrison these couple games. So it's a well-rounded defense that can stop the run. It's better against the pass, and they're playing a little bit more aggressive on third down this year. They're not a man defense, but when it gets to 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, they're going to play man. They're going to play man. They're going to bring some heat and try to get off the field. And it's just been a really effective defense, and it's been a really fun defense to watch to this point because, again, Carson Beck's a guy who threw for like 500 yards against this defense last year. And then the next year, they just totally shut him down. And then they were kind of the I think the case study. Well, this is what you maybe need to do against Ole Miss, because they were the first team to kind of slow down that Ole Miss team this year. And so they're at Brad White's one of the better coordinators, I think, in the country, and they're having a really good season on defense. But they got players. Like, again, I think you're going to look up on draft day, and you're going to see Kentucky linebacker, Kentucky defensive lineman, Kentucky defensive lineman, Kentucky safety. You're going to see guys come off the board, and it's going to be like, oh, no wonder they were good. They had some guys who were good enough to play on some NFL teams.
A couple more thoughts, Adam. I had this conversation on social media not long ago. With this defense, we know how good Brad White is. Maybe split is not the right word for this, but how much is it Brad White? How much is it Mark Stoops?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think Mark has a big oversee like just the philosophy of what they want to do.
Okay.
In big pictures type things like play style, ball, like how we're going to play ball control and complementary football. But I think very much from a game planning and a scouting and a play calling aspect, Brad White's running that defense in a lot of ways. And I think he's been there a long time too. He's been there since 2018. The defenses before Brad White got on campus haven't been close to the caliber since he's been there. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think he's had a big part in that. And I would say, the large majority of that defense is Brad White's, but there is philosophy wise in big picture type stuff. I think Stoops has probably a heavy sway of what they want to do, but that's what a head coach is supposed to do.
Right. I mean, Brad White might be the key cog of getting this thing turned around against Florida, because that's just
it's been
that side of the ball.
Josh Allen was good.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
he was
true.
good for 3, but
I mean,
White showed up there.
I'm here in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know. Yeah.
And then he took off in 18 when White got on campus,
Yeah.
and he credited a lot of his big year to White, directly to White, for getting him ready. And then after that, he got promoted to DC, and they've had this is probably the third, I would say, top 15 to top 20 caliber defense they've had, but they've been top 40 every year, and that's something at Kentucky, because that's something they always struggle to stop teams, and now they're able to consistently be, I would say, a top half or bare minimum top 10 defense in the league, and that's something
we know how hard that is not to do. So.
Yeah, and so that was something they always struggle with, and now it's just kind of a given, and it's just how good can they be, and I think Brad White deserves a lot of the credit for that. And then I think, and also the recruiting has slowly gotten better too, so they're able to fill holes easier than they were in the past.
Adam, last thing right here. Of course, you mentioned excelling and stopping the run. Well, Florida's going to start DJ Lagway this week. And look, you think Billy Napier wants to run the ball anyway. It may force his hand with a young quarterback to try and lean on it, but probably going to be pretty difficult against this. Montrell Johnson's out for Florida as well. So I don't know if the matchup is really too good for Florida. Not too many teams are running on Kentucky anyway. So, it bears the question, what does Florida come out and try and do? You got a young quarterback. It doesn't look like you can run for a lot of success against this team, but do you let a young quarterback try and air it out?
Yeah, one thing I would watch here is Kentucky is number 2 nationally in havoc rate.
Yeah.
Now, Kentucky's played the least amount of snaps of any defense. 1, but they played a half game week 1. The game got canceled.
That's right.
And then 2, just stylistically how they play, and then they played a team that plays slower than anyone in Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have a lot of snaps. So when you look at the tackle for loss, for all numbers, it's not high. But if you just do play by play, it's up there. The pass rush is effective when it needs to be. They create tackles for loss, and they get turnovers. And when this team has won the turnover battle, they've won games. And when you play like Kentucky does, where it's just conservative on offense, win the game on defense, that is a really key area. And that would, to me, would be the aspect here. I think I would, from Kentucky's side, I would be more worried if Mertz was back there, just because of the ball security aspect he was bringing, where I think, what you've seen from DJ Lagway, at least when I kind of dove in this week, David, there's just been more kind of turnover plays or turnover type plays, but there's also the volatility where he's probably more explosive on a down by down basis. So what does that give? But Kentucky, typically under White, they don't give up a lot of explosives.
Right.
And so I think the key to this game is, for both sides, don't make the big mistake. I think both offensively, it's going to be don't make the big mistake. It's going to be hard for these two offenses to probably score, especially if you have to put long drives together. So if we don't make the big mistake, we're probably going to be in good shape here. And so it's going to be a good old-fashioned conservative ground and pound. Let's, a draw on 3rd and 8 is not a bad play. Just run the draw and let's punt. Don't do anything that's going to hurt us here.
Yeah, it's kind of been the MO too for this kind of winning streak for Kentucky is make Florida drive, and eventually they're going to make the mistake, and that's kind of been what's happened. So
yeah, you look at I think last year it got away from Florida partly because Kentucky gets a lead early. I think Florida has a turnover on the first or second possession. Kentucky gets up 2 possessions, and then I think the crowd got into it. Florida started reeling a little bit, and the game was almost over after that. So if either side gets up by 2 possessions, it could be tough, I think, for either side to mount a comeback. I think for Kentucky, their offense, it's just hard for them right now. And for Florida, I think it would be tough against the Kentucky defense in the way Kentucky can efficiently run the ball. If they're able to play from ahead, they can be really hard to deal with. Good stuff, Adam, man. Thank you so much. Kentucky Sports Radio right there. You can check him out. Part of the On3 network too, right? Yeah, that's right. Yep. So really, really good stuff. I've checked it out this week to get some good Kentucky prep. Adam, man, I can't thank you enough. Hope you coming down for the game? Yeah, I'll be down there this weekend. Going to see my in-laws actually in your neck of the woods in St. John's. Okay. Gonna stay the weekend, and then we're going to drive over Saturday. So definitely looking forward to it. I do like the swamp. I like the outdoor press box. It's definitely one of my more fun, I think, fun stadium environments to be at in the places I've been in the league. So definitely looking forward to getting down there. Sounds good. I'll be like almost middle front row. So take a look out for me right there in the press box. We'll do, man. Hey, all right, Adam, thank you so much, man. Thanks, David. Gators Breakdown is brought to you by BetterHelp. Life gets hectic, I understand. And with so much on your plate, it's easy to neglect self-care. That's where therapy with BetterHelp comes in.
Therapy isn't just about solving problems, it's about empowering you to become your best self and reconnecting with your inner strength. It's a journey of self-discovery and growth. Now, look, I know life has been pretty hard out there lately for us here in the state of Florida, throughout the South. So many of you been affected by a lot lately. Life's been hard down our way. Well, BetterHelp brings therapy to you. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Gators and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gators to get 10% off your first month. All right, let's start with the Kentucky offense. And I was reading more with what Adam Luckett and the guys over at Kentucky Sports Radio was putting out. And Adam points out that for Kentucky's offense, they rank for points per drive 73rd in the country, 2.13 yards per points per drive. Yards per play, 110th overall in the country for Kentucky, 5.11. A success rate of 44.4%. That's good for 46th overall. That's respectable. EPA per play, negative 0.03, 91st overall in the country. So Kentucky struggling on that side of the ball, as we just discussed there. Kentucky feels a lot like Florida, where they are at in the season. In particular, coming off a game they felt they should have won against Vanderbilt. Bush Hamdan, the offensive coordinator, he created 5 scoring opportunities and 7 non-kneel possessions, and they just scored 13 points. So now you can see, you look at Florida and Tennessee last week, and now Kentucky and Vanderbilt last week. Kentucky feels a lot like Florida in having the opportunities to score and not coming up with points. Kentucky got the ball inside the 30-yard line 5 times. 3 of those possessions ended without any points. The Wildcats dropped to 55.56% in red zone touchdown scoring percentage, and that's good for 98th in the country. It's not a good red zone offense as Kentucky. That's 15th in the SEC. So it had a season-high 12 penalties. That also really hurt Kentucky's chances last week against Vanderbilt. And look, we're talking personal fouls, false starts, illegal blocks. I mean, you name it, they had it. Basically shot themselves in the foot, left a lot of points on the board. Coach Mark Stoops, he listened to his Monday press conference earlier this week. He was pretty frustrated when he talked to the media, called the loss, quote, frustrating on a lot of levels, and that's putting it mildly. When you look at how they lost, penalties and just not scoring when they had the chances to score. So, of course, they're trying to figure out what went wrong as they head into the swamp to face Florida this week. Stoops going to say, very frustrating, no excuse for it, things we have to get corrected, and we got to take a good, hard look at ourselves and why we're doing that. Not so much blaming the individuals who made the mistakes, but why? Why are we doing these things? Why do we do them in critical moments in certain games? That's what we've got to get figured out in the quote. It's just one more example of these programs heading into this game, both 3-3, feel a lot like each other. They both feel the same. Why are we making mistakes? Why are we killing ourselves in critical situations? There's a lot of similarities just besides the record, but why the record is where it's at for both these teams coming into this game. So let's talk some more about Kentucky. Just go throw out some stats as we discuss a little bit. SEC play, they've only scored 4 touchdowns in 4 games. I'm going to say that one more time. Remember how going back last week and we chronicled how Tennessee was struggling in SEC play? Kentucky's the same way. In SEC play, they've only scored 4 touchdowns in 4 games. That's games against South Carolina, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt. Gators defense once again must be ready, of course, for a physical ground attack that, Kentucky has led its opponents in rushing yardage in all 6 games this season. But a lot of that, of course, due to their defense holding rushing attacks down. But still, they're out-rushing opponents. But it's more than, it's about the defense, not so much Kentucky having a lot of success rushing the ball. Their leading rusher, I hope I'm getting his name right, Demi Sumo Kongbe. I think that's right. He's only averaging 4.6 a carry on 82 carries for 320 yards, adding 4 touchdowns, only 1 of his touchdowns is in SEC play. Look, we just chronicled there's only 4 in SEC play. He has 4 on the season, but only 1 in SEC play. Freshman Jamarian Wilcox is averaging 6.6 yards a carry, 29 yards a carry for 101 yards. But what to watch for, you just heard the conversation. Chip Traynor makes his debut, what it sounds like for Kentucky, at the running back spot. So something to watch there. Is he part of a explosion for Kentucky's run game, or is he still just much of the same of what we've seen? Traynor came to Kentucky after 2 seasons at Arizona State and 2 more at Ohio State. The 5'11", 225-pound ball carrier was the Buckeyes' leading rusher last season before entering the portal. So, of course, more than likely he was going to get passed up, but still the leading rusher for Ohio State last year. Kentucky is 75th in the country running the ball and 11th in the SEC at 153.3 yards a game. I mean, that's kind of surprising for a Kentucky run game. But that's much better than their passing. 75th in the country running the ball. They're 121st in passing offense, 15th in the SEC, so almost dead last, with 168.3 yards a game. Total offense good for 116th in the country. 15th in the SEC there as well, with 321.7 yards a game. Florida defense giving up 381 yards a game. So, you're probably looking in that 350-ish range if the averages hold up here. Go to quarterback for Kentucky. Brock Vandagriff, of course, really limiting this offense, making it so unbalanced. Get them in passing downs, take advantage. They're having issues protecting Vandagriff. A ton of pressure, ton of sacks. They're 106 in the country and giving up sacks with 16 so far this season. 2.67 a game. So you're looking at hopefully being able to replicate Florida's pressure that we've seen the last couple of weeks and getting to the quarterback. It should be good for about 2-3 sacks this game. I mean, I think we all, if we go back, and a lot of us, I remember watching this game. Now, Florida probably doesn't have the pass, well, not probably. Florida doesn't have the pass rush of South Carolina, but if you want an example of how bad it can be versus Kentucky, turn on South Carolina and Kentucky earlier this season, and you see that was just eye-opening. You don't expect that from a Kentucky offensive line. South Carolina's defensive line, look, they have been proven, even since that game, to be a pretty good pass-rushing team. But if Kentucky is where they're normally at, you're not getting that type of performance, even with South Carolina's pass rush attack. So can Florida replicate? They won't replicate that. Can they get somewhere like halfway in between what we've seen from Florida and that South Carolina game against this Kentucky offensive line? We'll see. Kentucky's going to try and limit that, of course. So this is an offense the Gators defense needs to take advantage of with the improvement we have seen the last couple of games on the defensive side of the ball. Kentucky wants to run the ball where they want to control the clock, not an explosive offense at all, but can be successful just hanging on to the ball, slowing the game down. We've seen it. Perfect example. Now, they had a lot of explosive runs against Florida last year. We all know that. But still, we've seen Kentucky against Florida and other teams. We know what they want to do. It sounds like a simple task, but how successful will Florida be in stopping that Kentucky run attack? The rush defense has definitely looked a lot better against teams that are pretty unbalanced. Shut down UCF, limited Tennessee well below what they're used to running the ball. And they still got their touchdowns in rushing the ball, but they didn't run for anywhere near the yardage. This rush defense is better. This is going to be another tough test. So if Florida can win this battle, that'll go a long way in winning the game overall. It's not rocket science for this game. Stop Kentucky's run game, you got a really good shot at winning. Have some early success in doing it as well. Give your offense every chance to build a lead. You do that too, you win the game because Kentucky's offense isn't coming back. They're not built to come back. They're not built to score in flurries. Load the box. I'm a big fan of loading the box this game against Kentucky. Be physical, beat your man, tackle. Florida was in position some last year, out of position a lot last year too. But still, if Florida was in position to, if they make the tackles they were in position to make last year, again, those explosives don't happen. A lot of those explosive happens because, out of position maybe up front for some of it, but also the ones you were in position for, just sad tackling performance. That's been better as well lately. So be aggressive in every facet of the defense. Keep loading the box. Attack, attack, attack. Make their offensive line prove they can hold up in pass protection. This is another opponent that struggles passing the ball, so pressure the quarterback. Pressure enough where he doesn't have time for the cheap explosive plays. That's another aspect I'm looking for. They're not an explosive offense. Don't give it to them. Don't let it be cheap. Because in a game, to me, that's going to be low scoring. And a tight game, one or two explosives can be the difference. What, 2 years ago? Or no, a few years ago. I guess it would have been maybe Mullins last year. But did enough to win that game overall, but it was 1-2 explosive plays, like it was to Rondell Robinson. That was just a difference for Kentucky to win the game. You can't give up those cheap kind of plays. All right, there we go. Let's go to the other side of the ball. Kentucky's defense. 9 starters returned for the Wildcats this season, and that's paying off. So far, ranking high in many categories. 4th in the country, 2nd in the SEC, and only giving up 79 total first downs this year. 4th in total defense in the country, 3rd in the SEC, only giving up 251.5 yards a game. 9th in the country, 4th in the SEC in scoring defense, giving up 14.5 points a game. 10th in the country, 3rd in the SEC, giving up only 89.3 rushing yards a game. Are we going to fall into that trap again? 13th in the country, 3rd in the SEC in passing yards allowed with 162.2 yards a game. So very balanced defense. 18th in red zone defense. Saw Florida's issues there last week. That's 5th in the SEC for Kentucky, giving up 73.3% scoring in the red zone. 18th in red zone defense. That's not great after what we saw Florida struggle there last week. And look, all this, playing Georgia, playing Ole Miss. Now, those offenses maybe not as good as we thought they would be at one point this season, but still good offenses. Held Georgia to 262 total yards and 13 points. Still found a way to lose that game. Held Ole Miss to 353 total yards and 17 points. Held Vanderbilt to 288 yards last week. So their defense is doing their part. There's no help from the offense. So this is another good Kentucky defense that Billy Napier has to try and crack. Hasn't been able to do it. Kentucky's defense is paced by senior linebacker De'Aaron Jackson. He leads the team with 33 tackles, 3 pass breakups. He's led Kentucky in tackles the last 2 seasons. Really good in coverage as well. As Jackson recorded his 5th career interception against Vanderbilt last week, which marked Vanderbilt's first interception all season. Kentucky's earned at least 1 turnover in each game this season, combining for 7 turnovers in 2024. We need to throw that interception in there. Another linebacker to watch out for, Jamon Dumas Johnson, transferred in from Georgia, 2nd on the team with 29 tackles. The player to watch, and that's up front, Deion Walker. He's anchoring that defensive line, named to nearly every preseason watch list when he was eligible for. 6'6", 348-pound defensive lineman, leads the Wildcat defensive line with 20 tackles, including 20 for loss. Or 2 for loss. 20 tackles, 2 for loss. So look, there's your players. This is just to look out for. Mentioned right before that, this is just a defense that Billy Napier's got to solve. Those are the players they got to look out for. This matchup just has not been pretty for Billy Napier's offense against a Mark Stoops defense and a Brad White defense. 2022, Napier's first year, Florida only managed 279 total yards of offense against Kentucky. Last season, only up to 313 total yards. This is set up by Kentucky stopping what Napier wants to do most, of course. That's run the ball. Now, in 2022, a little weird. In 2022, it was respectable, 4.5 yards per rush. Now, it gives a Kentucky defense that is respectable. But when your offense is built this way, you want it to be higher. Now, Montrell Johnson did have 8.9 yards per rush against Kentucky 2 seasons ago. Of course, he's not expected to play, but does that show that maybe something more is there? No, look, it's different defense, different players a couple years later. But that's the reason Florida's defense has been, or offense has been limited. Coach Montreal Johnson not expected to play Saturday. Last season, go back to it, fell dramatically. Florida only rushed 2.4 yards a rush against this Kentucky defense last year. And saw the struggles. There's a defense that can take advantage of DJ Lagway and his inexperience. Given what we've seen Mark Stoops do in his game planning against Anthony Richardson a couple of years ago. Richardson coming off that great game against Utah. A week later goes against this Kentucky defense. Couldn't do anything. They try not to give up the big play. And we know that's what we like about DJ Lagway and his potential in this offense. So that's gonna be a test. First of all, are the explosives going to be there? And if they're not there a whole lot, can you be patient? I mean, that's the test here. They bait you into just settling, making the right decision over and over and over. While they mostly sit in their zone defense, make you march down the field, and as we have seen it, just wait on you to make that mistake, and then they capitalize. It's been the same script: limited possessions, making each one precious. If they can get you to 8 to 9 possessions a game, they'll eat that up. They'll take it. So taking all this into account and how good they are in the red zone, you can see why this might be tough for Florida to score in this one. Better offenses have had struggles scoring against this defense. This is a game I try to use Lagway's legs more in this game than I probably would in others. Now, of course, we want to limit it in some ways given the quarterback situation, but you got to find a way to win first. But so probably more in this game, I'd probably try and rely on his legs a little bit. And in the fashion of maybe not so many design runs, but when the play breaks down. Find a way, let him know, take as little hits as possible, of course. But this can be a way to avoid that killer interception that's doomed Florida quarterbacks against Kentucky. If Lagway doesn't feel comfortable with a throw or decision, live to fight another down. Use your legs, get out of bounds. Look, it might be tough for him, of course. He's got that gunslinger mentality. And there's going to be some of that. You got to take that with, you got to take that good gunslinger mentality. There's going to be some good and bad with it. But take the smart play with your legs as much as possible. And as a staff, draw up some plays that get upfield and stretch the Kentucky zone. It's been aggravating playing right into what Kentucky has wanted us to do the last few years. They have done all the dictation in this game. They've dictated everything in this 3-game winning streak. They're making Florida's offense just settles for whatever Kentucky wants them to do. It's time to dictate them, not the other way around. Draw up some plays that get down the field. Now, I'm not sure I have confidence in Napier calling that style of game. But if you want to look for a path to win this game, to me, that's it. That's the most obvious. Now, of course, you got to have the ability to do it. And I like Florida's receivers, and I like Lagway getting the ball to him down the field. Can there be something creative enough, called enough, tried enough to get the ball down the field? Kentucky can give up some of those type of plays. The Wildcats are 68th in the country, giving up 18 passes for at least 20 yards. 93rd in the country, giving up pass plays of at least 30 yards with 10 of them. But they do improve in passing plays of at least 40 yards by only giving up 2 such passes in that area. Tied for 18th with many other schools there. Florida is one of those schools as well. Kentucky is one of 25 defenses not to give up a pass play of at least 50 yards. They haven't given up a single play overall of at least 50 yards. So there's your range you're looking out for. Can Lagway take advantage into that 20 to 40-yard range? Your 25-yard passes, your 35-yard passes. Can he add those up? Because, yes, it was Sanford, we know, so much different here. But the deep 50, 50-yard play. Kentucky's not giving that up. Now, with these athletes, is that more of a possibility? Maybe. But as we've said, and as we pointed out, they've played better offenses so far and still not giving up those big plays. They're not giving up many explosives in the run game, so stats tell us, the explosives are more likely going to have to come from the passing game. And maybe not the big, deep passes, but deeper passes. Not so close to the line of scrimmage, not playing in a box. Of course, a lot of that's going to depend on Lagway getting time from the Gators' offensive line. This Kentucky defense creates a lot of havoc. So, there we go. And there's a path there. That's what to look for. Can Florida get it done? Data backs up the Gators are capable and can hopefully lean into this a little bit more. Florida wide receiver Elijah Badger, 19.8, and wide receiver Chimere Dike at 18.6, ranked 5th and 6th in the SEC in yards per catch, respectively. One more time. Elijah Badger with 19.8 and Chimere Dike at 18.6, ranked 5th and 6th in the SEC in yards per catch, respectively. So as I say, if you want to lean into that 20-yard range, you know who you're looking for. Florida is the only SEC team with 2 qualified receivers averaging more than 18 yards per catch. It's kind of mind-blowing. Florida's the only SEC team with 2 qualified receivers averaging more than 18 yards per catch. Doesn't seem like it, doesn't feel like it. Further, Badger ranks 12th in the SEC with 69.2 receiving yards per game. DK ranks 15th with 58.8 yards per game. So, there you go. There you go. Kind of looking at that, statistical category there. Sacks per game, Kentucky there, about 2 a game. Tackles for loss, 38. They're not crazy havoc, but they can affect you there. And I'm just kind of going by what we've seen from this defense versus a Napier offense the last couple of years as well. And Florida's actually getting to the quarterback more. Florida 16 sacks on the season. Kentucky 13. Now, as you heard Adam say earlier, if you want to take total into account, a game against Vanderbilt with limited snaps and a half a game knocked out as well. So look, I'm at a true loss on trying to pick this game. I mean, this one's tough. This one's really tough to pick. So, my rule, when I absolutely have no idea, because I really don't. I can pick reasons why both teams should win this game. But the rule is, when I feel like this, the orange and blue glasses come on, and I'll be picking Florida. Simply, I think Florida's defense has improved enough against a one-dimensional offense, and Lagway will make enough plays. Now, on the other side, this sets up well for Mark Stoops to shut down another Florida offense with Lagway making his first SEC start and Florida's defense being out-physical by Kentucky again. That certainly is possible. That is certainly in the cards. Stoops just knows how to play Napier's offense. Both those scenarios very plausible. But I'm going to go 2017 low-scoring affair for the Gators. They're going to get one of those big plays with Lagway to DK or Badger down the field, making the difference. 2017 Gators. But, man, there's not a lot of confidence in that. And if I had went the other way with it with a Kentucky win, there's not a lot of confidence there either. This is a true coin flip. This is true, just pure guess on who's going to win. I would not touch it. I would not go to Vegas with it. This is not a lot of confidence in one way or the other. Maybe Florida being at home is a difference, but against Miami, against Kentucky, or Texas A&M, didn't mean a whole lot. Two teams you were clearly better than, Samford, UCF. That's what you've been able to cheer about in the Swamp this year. Time to get an SEC win. Time to get rid of this losing streak, 3-game losing streak against Kentucky. And oddly enough, another kind of must-win game for Billy Napier if he wants to get this thing back on track and somehow save his job. So, going to bank on getting it done. All right, one more segment to go. But if you were affected by Hurricane Milton, here's a message from a good friend, John Sachs, from the Sachs Law Group.
Did you see the 60-minute special last week? The one showing a Florida insurance company lowering an estimate from over $200,000 to $15,000 without explanation? Insurance companies are not on your side. Let us truly be on your side. I'm attorney John Sachs, and if you want aggressive representation to handle every aspect of your claim and maximize your recovery, the Sachs Law Group is here to help. Call us for a free consultation. I grew up in the Tampa Bay area. This storm is personal to me. Our community was ground zero. We will get through this together. Tampa Bay strong. Visit HurricaneMiltonHealth.com.
Here we are back again. Focus on the Gators with Alex Shepard. Alex, been a little bit since we've gotten together. We've had a bye week. We've had hurricanes. We've had life getting in the way here. So, Florida's played, I think, Mississippi State, UCF, beating those teams. Headed to Knoxville last week with a chance to, gain some momentum, which has been a fickle word under Billy Napier, only to get in their own way, find a way to lose. So, man, that was a chance. That was a chance to just gain a little bit of momentum under Billy Napier, and there we go.
Yeah, I'd have to look this stat up. Maybe you know this off the top of your head, but what's the most games we've won in a row under Billy Napier? Is it 3, maybe 4?
Oh, there you go. I looked it up going into last week. It is 3.
Okay, so
he won 3 in a row against McNeese, Tennessee, and Charlotte.
When you say that and you start off with McNeese, I think you lose me right there, because it doesn't matter the two that if you have to start. I mean,
right.
Even if you ended on Charlotte, you're ending on
right
and starting.
That's the stat I found. He has yet to beat 3 straight P4, P5 teams.
Yeah, that's embarrassing, man. And you're lucky you didn't catch me on the pod Saturday night after the game, because I would have been a lot more heated talking about all this. But it comes from a place of passion, man. I mean,
yeah.
I've been a Gator fan since I was born, and I've talked about this, but I'm a 4th-generation Gator, and I've gone through many coaches. I didn't miss a home game for 21 years. I sat in the same seats up in section 1 in the corner of the end zone with my dad and my grandma. And we've seen a lot of crap, man. And let me tell you, it's been hard to watch. And that is a game we should have won. And in every other alternate universe, we won that game.
Yeah.
It's just not meant to be.
No, that's the most frustrating part, because it was there, and that's why it hurt so much. You didn't look. I went into that game saying, okay, I know Kentucky's or Tennessee's offense can be had. They weren't as good as I thought they were once you started diving into the stats. Once they started SEC play, okay, this is better. I had, don't get me. There's no moral victories. I had Florida losing by double digits, by two touchdowns, I think. But I even said in the pod, I was like, I think it's going to be a close game, and Tennessee just scores late to put that 2-score difference up. So I thought the chance was there for Florida to really match up with Tennessee's offense and keep that game close. And then, lo and behold, it's even more than I thought that Florida could hang, and Florida could beat Tennessee, only for it not to happen. So, Alex, it's going to look a little bit different this week than the last few. DJ Lagway taking over for the injured Graham Mertz. Montrell Johnson out as well. Would it be a young backfield for the Gators?
Yeah, and on our earlier podcast that we had talked on, when you were saying, I think this was after like week 2, it was, does DJ Lagway need to be the starter?
Yeah.
That's what everyone was talking about. Does Lagway need to be the starter? Does Mertz need to sit? And now we've kind of been thrust into that situation, right? And I was one of the few that said, no, I think that Mertz needs to remain the starter. And now it looks like we're all going to be fed DJ Lagway, whether we want it or not. And I think that it's going to be a learning curve for him, because not only is he, kind of being thrown into the fire, but you're being asked to be a starter playing well, obviously, I think Kentucky is probably about as good as you can get on the schedule, other than maybe FSU. But after that, you're playing the number 1 team in the country away. You're playing the number 5 team in the country in Jacksonville, and they're arguably better than number 5. And this is all put on the shoulders of, how old is he now? 19. And maybe
he still might be 18.
Might be still be 18. Yeah. And then you got Jaden Baugh, another young guy who, you're putting a lot of weight on these guys' shoulders, and that sometimes can backfire. Because
and overall, while Tennessee or Kentucky may not be that, their defense is still really good.
And even when they weren't good, they found ways to beat us. It didn't matter whether they were good or not. They would come in and they would beat us. And Billy Napier does not seem to have the answer for Kentucky. I don't know what it is or what's preventing him from getting that secret formula solved. But yeah, he just can't seem to find it. And so this week's going to be interesting to see if he can dial it up with a freshman quarterback, a freshman running back, and, can the weapons around him make up for that lack of experience?
Absolutely. Alex, as I said, everybody knows when you're on here, we talk, you're on the sideline, you get to take photos and stuff. So you've been around Graham Mertz closer than a lot of other people. And look, when you're that close, when you're on the sideline, you get to pick up things. And look, nobody's, I don't think, going to question the type of person, the type of player Graham Mertz is. Stand up as stand up can be for him. So he's certainly going to be missed in his own right. Yeah,
I think that being around him down on the field after the games, especially like before the game, everyone's hyped up. He's the one who's, cheering his guys on and encouraging his offensive line. And DJ Lagway does that in his own right. After the game, it's the same thing. He's putting his arms around people. He is obviously a very popular guy within the locker room. He, in a very short amount of time, including last year, had commanded the respect of the team. And I think that he came in and he did a lot more than what people thought. I remember seeing a lot of the threads and tweets last year. Like when we got Mertz, people were bummed. People thought it was not a good pickup. And I think that he proved that he was better than what most people thought he would be, having such a high completion percentage. Obviously, he wasn't perfect, but he came in and did a lot of good things. And I think he should be remembered as a great Gator, as a person who gave his all for the orange and blue. And, that needs to not be forgotten, that, he gave a ton of effort for this team. He would sacrifice his body a lot, just throwing himself at first downs, which, also got him hurt a few times, but he's a good guy. He's a team player. And I'm definitely going to miss seeing him in the orange and blue.
Yeah. I remember the preseason magazines before the 2023 season, and there's a list of transfer quarterbacks, and there's 15 of them. And Graham Mertz was ranked 15th out of 15. He certainly overcome that, because that was the same class as the his name escapes me, the guy who transferred from Wake Forest to Notre Dame last year. Lord.
Oh man.
I forget his name. Anyway, he was he was number 1, and you go back and look at it, Shador Sanders also transferred from Jackson State to Colorado. So it's that same transfer class, and Graham Mertz is going to end up being top 3, top 5 out of that.
Definitely top half.
Yeah, when it was all said and done. So yeah, certainly that name is going to kill me. I know I'm going to think of it as soon as we start recording this.
If you want, while you're talking, I can look it up and let you know.
I was trying to see if I could come up with it off the top of my head. Oh well, we'll get there. So, Alex, does it change your outlook for the season at all with Mertz going down, Lagway taking over? You mentioned what you had thought previously, but Florida's sitting at 3-3 right now. Critical game coming up against Kentucky. Look, any hope for the rest of the season, any hope for something to happen the rest of the season means Florida has to have this one.
No. My outlook has not changed, and I hate to be pessimistic about it. I want so badly, as a diehard Gator, to come out and say, you know what, this is gonna fire the team up and we're gonna win 4 or 5 more games. Like, it's just not gonna happen. I hate to say that, because I'm trying to be real about it. I'm trying to feel realistic, because I've always been a person, I don't like getting my hopes too high. I'd rather be excited after setting lower expectations than to set those expectations too high and then be disappointed. So I think that it's going to be a lot of learning pains, growing pains for DJ Lagway. I don't expect him to be perfect. I don't think any remaining games, he goes out there and throws 400 yards like he did earlier in the season. I think we see, interceptions. I think we see them play it maybe a little bit safer with him on the QB runs, because after that you've got, I think it's Warner.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we want to see that happen. I'm sure he's a great kid, but I don't think that we want to see him injured. So I think they play a little bit more safe with Lagway. So a lot more dropbacks, quick throws, maybe the occasional deep shot, and then leaning on Baugh and Jackson and some of these other guys in the backfield. So my outlook remains the same. I think we stay. We may win this game this weekend. I think that, Tennessee's not a great team, but they're a better team than arguably UCF or like any of these teams that we have beat. Obviously they're ranked highly and whatnot, but I think that we have a chance to win this one. I am still not going to predict us to win this one because I told myself I would not predict that we would win another game after earlier in the season, and I have still not seen enough. Now the defense looked really good.
I was about to get you there. I was like, not get you, but I was like, since we have last gotten together, hey, one side of the ball is looking a little bit better.
Yeah, the defense looks good. Now I will say this, I don't see, after Kentucky, I don't see a winnable game for the remainder of the season, pretty much, other than FSU.
Yep.
That's going to be a telling. That's when we're going to find out what kind of team Florida is. Like, these early games have told us a little bit. We've gotten the glimpse into like what we're good at and what we're bad at, but we're really going to find out what we're good and what we're bad at over the next 4 or 5 games after Kentucky. So this one, I think it's going to be close. I think we come out and keep it close. I do think we have a shot to win it. If we win it, I think it's not by much, maybe a field goal or a touchdown. But at this point, with how much Mark Stoops seems to find Billy Napier's number, and Billy just can't seem to call a competent game, I'm going to pick Kentucky to win it.
Yeah. It's astonishing where this game is. It's not what it used to be. This used to be hey, we're playing Kentucky this week. Okay, that's the win. Not what it used to be anymore. Look, that part of that's Florida, but part of that is Kentucky. They are better than they used to be. But still, I've always said, if Florida is right, I don't care how good Kentucky is, you don't lose this game. 3 in a row now, 2 in a row for Billy Napier, of course. Time to get off the snide a little bit. Alex, I've seen this brought up, so I think I maybe know where you lean on this. And this question, defense has gotten better. Turn the page to DJ Lagway. Does that at all give a pass for Billy Napier for the rest of the season?
We have seen people talk about that. Granted, yeah. I still see all the hot boards for coaches, even though the conversation's happening. Yeah. I think there's only one way. I can only visualize one way that Billy Napier is the coach of the Gators come next season, and that's if he wins 8 games. If he can pull out 4 more wins, something like that. We're 3-3. So 5 more wins, technically. I'm thinking about this weekend potentially being one of those. 8 wins, and I think he can stick around. I think that would be impressive given the schedule and the difficulty and the cards he was dealt. I think that to look at a coach and say, you know what? Oh, darn, after 6 games, he's got a freshman quarterback, and we should give him a little slack. I think that's just a cop-out. I think that's an easy answer or a easy solution to say, oh, we should keep him around. Granted, I'm not the one with the checkbook. I'm not the one who would have to pay the buyout. And I can see some other people who do have those checkbooks wanting to maybe keep them around a little bit longer so that they don't have to pay as much and keep some stability. But I'm just the kind of person that I think keeping someone around for stability's sake when they are about to have their 3rd losing season, it shows no improvement. I think he's helped build the foundation. And I think that it is solidified. I think with the new facilities and NIL continuing to improve, we still have a long way to go there, though. I think that it's time to move to someone who brings a little bit of the flash, the excitement that Gator Nation just doesn't feel like the fan base to me that thrives fully on a coach that's like the monotone, very like even-headed guy. We like the Spurriers that are like the loud and excited, the Myers do the big offense, and those seem to be the guys that come with the most success as well. When you look at people like Mullen came with that really high-powered offense. Now, obviously that ended for other circumstances, but the most successful coaches that we've had in the last 20 plus years have been the guys who come in and are the high octane, high energy offense guys, and we're not getting that out of Napier. So either he needs to hire right now, get rid of a person on the field, like one of those O-line coaches, and hire the best offensive coordinator in the country, and that could keep him around, or need to find the guy who's going to come in and be that high octane guy, like the Kiffins, the James Franklins. And I'm the one who's saying maybe like Garrett Riley or something weird like that, but I'm the only one saying that.
Look, it's not a pass for me either. It's year 3. This year was about substantial progress, no matter the circumstances. So look, that's what happens after the hole that was dug the last 2 seasons and how this season started. Yeah. So, that's just where it's at, unfortunately. I wish we weren't talking about it. Look, I wish we were talking about, hey, Florida's got some momentum. Let's go win some ball games. The last thing I do, I haven't dove into the coaching search as many others have. There will be plenty of time for that if and when it happens. So all the hot boards and big boards, I'll discuss it, but it's not a big topic yet on Gators Breakdown. So we'll have plenty of time for it. But I think we do have to bring up, because a lot of people are talking, does this give a pass for Billy Napier now, given a freshman quarterback and all that? So I think you and I are on the same page there. I think most people are also ready not to give a pass for whatever year 3 holds, or the rest of year 3 for Billy Napier. So, Alex, man, as I said, it's been a while. Everybody know Alex Shepard Photography, of course. You check his work out there. You've seen the photos here on Gators Breakdown, but also, if you're looking for a new home in the Jacksonville area.
Yeah. So I'm glad we were able to switch around when we were recording this, because I just got here from a closing that ran long.
There we go.
So if you're looking to move over to Jacksonville, it's a great market over here. A lot of great areas of town to look at, no matter what the price range. Rates are starting to come down as well. So a lot of positives in the real estate market. And come on over, hang out with David and I over in the 904. And look forward to helping anybody out if they got questions.
All right, there we are. Focus on the Gators with Alex Shepard. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Florida, Kentucky, Saturday. I think the Gators win in a low-scoring affair, but we'll see how it goes. Not a lot of confidence there either way. I am the host of Gators Breakdown, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.